Hello, good afternoon and welcome to Midday Prime, the 1-hour lunchtime show packed with all the updates from home and abroad, economy and sports. I'm Gautam Roy. The President has given out the Padma Awards to 73 recipients today at a glittering ceremony at Rashtrapati Bhavan. We'll tell you which luminaries got recognition for their contribution to society, including late former Union Ministers Sushma Swaraj and Arun Jaitley, India's COVID warriors, stars and even some lesser known but in no way lesser contributors to society. But first, the big news of the hour. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to lay foundation stones for 4 laning of key sections of Sri Sant Gyaneshwar Maharaj Palki Marg and Sri Sant Tukaram Maharaj Palki Marg today via video conferencing. The PM will also dedicate to the nation multiple road projects for boosting connectivity to pilgrimage site Pandharpur. President Ramnath Kovind confers Padma Awards upon 73 recipients, including 4 Padma Vibhushans and 8 Padma Bhushans at Rashtrapati Bhavan. Late Union Ministers Sushma Swaraj, Arun Jaitley and George Fernandes honoured with Padma Bhushan awards posthumously. Prime Minister Modi reaches BJP veteran L.K. Advani's residence to greet him on his 94th birthday. The PM says the nation remains indebted to him for his numerous efforts towards empowering people and enhancing our cultural pride. Severe waterlogging continues in Chennai and other parts of northern Tamil Nadu. Prime Minister Modi speaks to Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin and discusses the situation. The Chief Minister announces closure of schools in 4 northern districts of the state. In international news, US lifts travel restrictions for much of the world beginning today. The restrictions were imposed from early 2020 to address the spread of COVID-19. Japan too lifts COVID-19 ban on business travelers, foreign workers beginning today. And in sports, Team India looks to end the Kohli-Shastri era on a high with a victory over Namibia in their final Super 12 match of the T20 World Cup. For the men in blue, rest and rotation may be the theme of the final T20 World Cup game. And the 4-day-long Chhath Puja celebrations begin today in different parts of the country. Devotees pay special prayers to the sun god. Festival is connected with purity and devotion to the sun god. Let's now get the show underway with the big news of the hour. Now, in an effort to facilitate the movement of devotees of Pandharpur in Maharashtra, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be laying the foundation stones of 4 laning of 5 sections of Sant Gyaneshwar Maharaj Palki Marg. That's NH 965, and 3 sections of Sri Sant Tukaram Maharaj Palki Marg. That's NH 965G, through a video link in a short while from now. Dedicated walkways for Palki will be constructed on either side of these national highways, providing hassle-free and safe passage to devotees. About 221 kilometers of Sant Gyaneshwar Maharaj Palki Marg and about 130 kilometers of Sant Tukaram Maharaj Palki Marg will be 4-laned with dedicated walkways for Palki on either side at an estimated cost of more than 6,690 crores and about 4,400 crores respectively. During the event, the PM will also dedicate to the nation more than 223 kilometers of completed and upgraded road projects constructed with an estimated cost of over 1,180 crore rupees at different national highways for boosting connectivity to Pandharpur. And to share some more details about the event and its significance, we have our correspondent Yogesh Sheetal joining us from Pandharpur in Maharashtra for more on this. Good afternoon to you, Yogesh. What more can you tell us in terms of, what is this project entirely about? Because I'm sure it's more, it is definitely about pilgrims, but it would be more apart from that as well. It will go much beyond in terms of benefits for the people of Maharashtra and the country.
See, Gautam, this will not only make impact for the devotees basically, which is very, in fact, very important part, because annually Falki is organized here, and from both the ways, from Sant Sri Ganeshwar Maharaj way and also Sant Sri Tukaram Maharaj way, we have been witnessing complete congestion of traffic. And after the construction of 4-lane in all the 8 highways, and also a dedicated walkways are also expected to be constructed, and that will be even laying foundation. PM will be laying foundation stone today, so that will give a complete relief for the local people as well as the devotees that come annually to take blessings of Lord Vitthal here, Lord Vitthal and Rukmini, basically the temple which is globally famous. So this will definitely will make big impact when it comes to convenience, and when it comes to arrangement of the entire area, as well as the connected area like Pune, Solapur, and also some different areas like Hyderabad. This is basically a hub. Apart from these things, also coming to different aspect like farmer things, because Solapur is basically a farm hub. We know that the cultivation of grapes, pomegranate, also sugar cane, number of products that are cultivated here. And also recently we have seen in the last year 100 the Kisan Rail was started from Solapur, Sangola. Basically Sangola is a particular area under Solapur district. Right. So number of things are also expected to get pushed from this step, because when farmers get connectivity, they will get better price of their product, because ultimately the cost of transportation will be reduced. So on the one hand, transport tourism sector will get a boost. On the other hand, farmer sector, farmers, basically the local farmers, also will get a boost. We know that also dry ports are constructed in Maharashtra. 2 dry ports are constructed in Maharashtra. Already we know that Kisan Rails are Kisan Rails are basically assisting farmers to get a better price through to ensure that their products get a good profit in terms of the transportation cost are basically reduced by various steps. Apart from these things, also job creation, which is a very important thing. Job creation will also get a boost from these steps, because once the area is developed, there will be more opportunity for the youth to establish hotels, to involve in various activities, various money generating activities. So there will be multiple outcome of the projects that are going to be launched today. Also some groundbreaking ceremonies organized, and apart from that, some projects which are completed, that will be inaugurated in the presence of Nitin Gadkari, and also Maharashtra Chief Minister Uddhav Thackeray and the Governor are also expected to present at the event.
Yes, certainly a big day for the state. Just tell us what are the timelines in terms of completion, because one of course is the major 4-laning of these 2 key highways, and the other is of course the inauguration of projects that have already been completed.
See, around 340 kilometers the roads which are going to be constructed, basically the groundbreaking ceremony that I was talking, that is expected to be completed in next 2 or 3 years. Exact timeline we have not received from the NHAI. On the other end, around 240 kilometers roads have already been completed, and that will be dedicated to the nation by the Prime Minister. So this is what the basic information. Apart from that, also there are some development projects which are going to be which are going to be started today, which are going to be flagged of impact inaugurated by the Prime Minister today. So there are various series of projects are there.
Okay, wonderful. You keep an eye on how things proceed from here. Yogesh, we'll take updates from you later on as well, but thanks for the time being. And now let's talk about our developing story of the day. Well, President Ramnath Kovind conferred the Padma Awards 2020 at a civil investiture ceremony at the Rashtrapati Bhavan today. Vice President Venkaiah Naidu, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar and other dignitaries attended the ceremony. The government had announced 141 Padma Awards on the eve of Republic Day in 2020. The list comprises 7 Padma Vibhushans, 16 Padma Bhushans and 118 Padma Shri Awards. Now, former Union Ministers Arun Jaitley, George Fernandes and Sushma Swaraj were conferred with Padma Vibhushan posthumously along with classical singer Pandit Channu Lal Mishra and former PM and President of Mauritius Anirudh Jugnauth. Arun Jaitley's wife Sangeeta Jaitley and Sushma Swaraj's daughter Bansuri Swaraj received the honour from the President. Veteran boxer from Manipur, Mary Kom, and spiritual leader of Pejawar Mutt, Vishwesh Tirth Swami, were also honoured with the Padma Vibhushan. Those who were conferred with Padma Bhushan include Muzaffar Hussain Beg from Jammu and Kashmir, Anil Prakash Joshi from Uttarakhand, Balakrishna Doshi from Gujarat, badminton player PV Sindhu, former Chief Minister of Goa Manohar Parrikar, and US-based scholar Jagdish Sheth. And the prominent personalities who were given Padma Shri awards include captain of women's hockey team Rani Rampal, singer Adnan Sami, former head scientist ICMR Dr. Raman Ganga Kherkar, Air Marshal Dr. Padma Bandhopadhyay and actress Kangana Ranaut. So quite a glittering ceremony there with a wide range of recipients. These are the Padma Awards for 2020 that were announced on Republic Day. They've been presented, 73 of them in fact out of 140 odd. And these include, like I said, Padma Bhushans and Padma Shris. People from all walks of life who have contributed to society have been honoured with these awards. Let's bring in our guest for the show on this particular investiture ceremony. Sanjay Singh joins us, senior journalist. Good afternoon to you, Sanjay. Just like every year, this time too, a very wide range of different people from different walks of life who've contributed to society getting these Padma Awards, but what according to you have been the highlights?
Since 2014, the controls of Padma Award has changed. In fact, the process has become more transparent. This award was essentially for achievers, those who contributed to progress and prosperity of nation, to environment, to medical sciences, to art, to culture, and various other fields that you know. And what we saw essentially before 2014 that people were losing confidence in Padma Award, because Padma Award was largely given to people who were either close to corridors of power or they had friends and people who could influence something.
Yes, it had become an instrument of patronage.
Yeah, precisely. Since then, the process has become more transparent. You look at the list of Padma awardees, people who are unsung heroes, people who are not known precisely to people, to the world at large. And we see those people coming in. Of course, there are some celebrities, known people also there, as you listed. Padma Bhushan going to people who contributed, say Arun Jaitley, who contributed vastly to inequality and empowerment in the field of law and governance. Sushma Swaraj, again a very towering figure. George Fernandes, of course. And then we have Shinzo Abe and people like them. But we see the list and we also see Tarun Gogai's name is there, Maulana Waiduddin Khan name is there, and so a large number of people. 2 years ago when Bharat Ratna was awarded, a few years ago to Pranab Mukherjee, then some people also raised their eyebrows. But fact remains that the government was conveying a message that here is a government, here is approaches of Padma Awards, which negates the perception that this is guided by the politics, the party you belong, is guided by the people you know, and various other things which were invoked prior to 2014. unsung heroes, women. What happens if you give award to people who have worked vastly in field, contributed, say, plantation in barren fields, and making people know in areas of sanitation? They may be unsung heroes and heroines, but in their own areas, people know them. Once you award these people, once you the nation honors these people, the word goes to the people out there in their respective areas.
Yes.
They may not be celebrated in as much, their profiles may not be carried as much in national media, but of course the reasons they belong, people actually appreciate that, and they also get inspired.
Certainly, and you made the point how there is no political partisanship, and that is amply displayed even in this time around the list of recipients. If there's Sushma Swaraj and Arun Jaitley, there's Tarun Gogoi and there's George Fernandes as well. But let's also talk about the inclusiveness. How more and more women have come into the list, and different categories of people as well, including a transgender. And some tried to raise a controversy about Adnan Sami as well, but then what he's done for society in general all over the world, not just in India but even in Pakistan when he was a Pakistani citizen, now he's an Indian citizen, have nothing to do with what his father did.
Precisely, you got the point very right. And people who are transgenders, women in particular, people from margins of society in social stratification terms, people belonging to those categories, people who are unsung, not known, but contributed immensely to progress of nation, to Indianness, and to kind of make name for themselves in their area. They essentially did not start their work to make a name or to get an award, but essentially they were working for welfare of the society, larger considerations of welfare of society, the Indianness and India's development. That process, the inclusiveness that you talked about, people, when these people get award, there is appreciation and admiration. The popular confidence in Padma Award is being restored and has been restored to great extent. That, I think, one of the biggest achievement of Modi government, restoring confidence in Padma Award, giving awards to people who people thought were not eligible. I meet so many people who say, "Mujhe Padma nahi mila. I've contributed so much. Look, in this particular field, I have done so much for God." My suggestion to them is very simple. Ask somebody to recommend your name. Trust me, this is a very transparent process. If you have done something, you will be considered. What unfortunately was happening, if you think that I have done something for the society, and if you know right people, as you said, the Petronas extension part, and those people used to get award. That process thankfully is over, and people are getting the awards. The ceremony is to go today and tomorrow. Those people, when they return to their respective home, to their areas, they, of course, their profiles, people are going to talk about them for a long time.
Certainly, and what the Padma Awards have also been known for is a celebration of Indian culture, which is why you find names of musicians and people who represent Indian culture and showcase it to the world. They've always been part of it, but even this prism has been widened, in recent years, hasn't it?
Precisely, Gautam. There was a time when too much of stress was on Bollywood, and too many people were talking as to why not Padma should be scrapped, because they had lost confidence of people, and you know what set of people are going to get it, what set of people are not going to get it. And therefore those talks, and there was actually a debate in society as to what was the relevance of Padma Award if it was only meant to extend patronage and more loyalty to some effect, and so is and basically influence of power extending to people of certain degrees, certain poetry, and something was at work. That being extended and achievers being included, people of all realm, it is without consideration of caste, faith, religion, gender, and so on and so forth, rich or poor. People who have come to receive Padma Award, they put their pictures. Last time a woman was there, and she was at the surface of it was looking very humble, but her achievement was immense and for society to know. And we actually get inspired by those things, and so many other people are going to inspired by those stories. Padma Awards also bring certain degree of privileges which people they deserve and they get. And therefore, when Padma Award is considered, the process was needed to be made more transparent, which Modi government has done.
Right. And the other perception was that you need to have some grey hair to be able to get a Padma Award. I think that is a misconception now more than ever.
Precisely. That is because you only thought that beyond a certain age you get Padma Awards. Of course, people in grey hair are also there, but people who have done something at a very young age, and even during those times when the times you are talking, Sachin Tendulkar was awarded Bharat Ratna, and there were question marks as to why Sachin Tendulkar at this moment was given Bharat Ratna award, and somebody who was heavily into commercial promotion, commercial ads. Sachin Tendulkar was a great player and still a national icon. But fact remains, should he not have been given that award in those times? Now what we see that people who are really achievers, young or old, people who have contributed to society and are largely unsung. Some people, of course, very known names are there. That has to be there, because if the process has to be made inclusive, fair and transparent, then of course some people who are known celebrities and people known in their respective areas of field, they have to include it. But what brings Indianness, Indian culture, Indian society, Indian music, and Indian society, environment, culture, art, literature, politics / governance, they also have to be included. And therefore, we see that the spectrum of Padma Awards, now today nobody is talking whether or not Padma Award should be there, should be strapped or should not be strapped. That debate is past.
No, now the debate is, who should be getting it, and people keep on suggesting names and saying, oh, why is this person not getting it, and the range is widened, and people say give Bharat Ratna to Hemwati Nandan Bahuguna, some say some erstwhile business leaders, late luminaries of the Tata Birla kind of pantheon. So there's always a demand of somebody should be getting it, and not like why are these awards being given anymore.
Precisely, you said it. The demand for Padma Awards of any kind, and maybe even Bharat Ratna, is not bad. But if you deserve it, and there is a a great deal of consideration and due diligence goes into that, if they deserve that, they will get an award. But yes, that debate is no longer there, whether or not. The question is who gets it, and to what performance, and to what basis. To what basis, that question has also been negated, because their credentials for them speak very highly, and people at large recognize that, those who got it, and nobody kind of challenges. In fact, if Tarun Gogoi is a name in political circles to be being talked about, as he was not from the party which rules in most of the states in the country, not also in Assam, the BJP rules the state. Same was case with Pranab Mukherjee, and I was people raised for different reasons, and people actually negated that. Therefore, these awards have become very, very relevant. People are going to talk about it. You are showing these awards, you are talking about it, and thankfully you are also making good talking points out of these Padma awardees. People actually achieved. Adnan Sami, as you had said, just almost is right on the screen. He, despite several odds, Adnan Sami achieved a lot.
Yes.
And he personally, at a professional level, at a personal level, and he is kind of enhancing India's cause.
Certainly, and even in terms of honoring those who contribute to society in business, in health, and areas that point to the kind of challenges that the entire world is facing right now and will be facing in the future. That is also an indicator of how conscious are people, because a lot of these suggestions are coming from the people and the government itself as to which kind of contributions need to be rewarded.
Precisely, and a person of Indian origin who essentially works in the United States but has achieved immense and has given some pride to India with his contributions. He has also been considered for Padma. He is there in this top. And therefore, the point that you are talking about, it is also related to the economic development, to the innovations, and maybe in times to come, those who contributed immensely to COVID immunization and the research and development related to it, they also may be considered. I think would be a huge award for people who contributed to this area. This was not, research and development was not something India was known for.
Yes.
Maybe in times to come they will be considered.
Certainly, research and development and technology, as well as innovation, even entrepreneurship, perhaps these are the ways to go for the Padma Awards, apart from recognizing contributions in fields as diverse as perhaps even combating climate change. Whichever way, there are so many ways to do it, through planting trees or through coming up with clean tech enterprises. Anything could be there, but we have to look for more to what the Padma Awards can offer in terms of the recognition and bringing to the fore the kind of contributions that are required in society, the kind of contributions that are rewarded once they are recognized. Thanks a lot for joining us for the moment, Sanjay Singh. Okay, now let's move on to National Prime. An update first in National Prime from the south, which is about, well, the weather and other issues related to it, the misery that's pouring from the skies. The heavy downpour in Tamil Nadu has wreaked havoc in the state, affecting normal life. The regional Met Office in Chennai has said that Tamil Nadu and Puducherry have experienced about 43% excess rainfall since the start of the northeast monsoon in October. However, the sudden downpour on Saturday night is attributed to weather conditions caused by an upper air cyclonic circulation system along the state's coastline. Meanwhile, relief work continued apace as the Chennai Corporation has set up pump sets in 500 locations to remove stagnant water. Officials said the water was receding fast as stormwater drains had been desilted recently. As part of the relief efforts, 1 lakh food packets have also been distributed so far. Around 160 relief camps are providing food, shelter and medical care. They've been opened up across Chennai. With the water level rising in lakes around Chennai, the water continues to be released from the Chembarambakam lake that supplies water to the city. Also, in the wake of the heavy rains in the northern region, educational institutions in Chennai, Kanchipuram, Tiruvallur, Chengalpet and some other districts have been shut down for the next 2 days. The Chief Minister has also urged private firms to announce a holiday or allow employees to work from home. And even though the Tamil Nadu government has declared holiday for its offices today, the Madras High Court has decided to function online. The virtual court mode, which came into use across the state since March 2020 due to the COVID lockdown, has come in handy during the recent rains in Chennai and 3 other nearby districts. The notification published on the High Court's website stated that final hearing cases would be taken up for final hearing only if lawyers or litigants representing both sides were present in the virtual session. The functioning of city civil courts, magistrate courts and family courts in Chennai would also be on the same lines. It also said that if some judges were unable to conduct virtual courts, then the work would be allotted to alternative benches. Also, in the Union Territory of Puducherry, close by, 2-day holiday has been declared for all schools and colleges, and this is in Puducherry and Karaikal districts from today and tomorrow due to the incessant rains. In an order, the Joint Director of the Education Department said the reopening of the government and the private schools for classes 1 to 8 had also been postponed due to the incessant rains in the Union Territory. Earlier, it was decided to reopen the schools from the 1st to the 8th standards from today. The district administration of Villupuram and Kadalur has also declared holiday to the schools and in schools and colleges today. Let's now bring in DD India's Philip Matthew from Chennai live with us on the phone line. Philip, what can you tell us in terms of how the state, primarily the 4 districts in Puducherry, are coping with this downpour, which so far is refusing to abate?
Well, I can tell you, Gautam, as far as Chennai is concerned, the rains have abated a little
okay.
today.
That's great.
we are witnessing, showers of far lesser intensity today. In
Okay.
fact, that the rains of around 8 centimeters were recorded till 8:30 a.m. this morning, so which is far lower than the 20.
Yeah, but it's quite substantial still.
Which was much lower than the 22 centimeters that was recorded on Saturday night. But this, of course, is par for the course as far as the northeast monsoon is concerned. So,
Okay.
the Met Office says it's nothing to be alarmed about, but this is only a temporary reprieve. There is a new system that is forming in the bay probably tomorrow, and based on how that system moves, there could be heavy rains in store on the 10th and 11th of this month.
Right, right. Now, what does that do to the kind of efforts that we've informed our viewers about in terms of relief camps, food packets being distributed, water being pumped out of the lakes, and the lakes themselves being in a bit of the water levels there being in a precarious situation?
Well, the reduction in the intensity of the rains has allowed the authorities to step up relief operations. In fact, in many low-lying areas, the water has been drained out. The authorities have used as many as 500 pumps in different locations to bail out water in low-lying areas as well as in major intersections and in subways which have been flooded due to the rains. Besides that, of course, relief camps, over 160 odd relief camps have been set up across the city, and nearly 1 lakh food packets have been distributed. Luckily, there's been no report of any loss of life, although around 200 and odd houses have been damaged due to the downpour. But the authorities are keeping their fingers crossed and hoping that with more rains in store, the city will be able to weather the storm in the coming days. But for the moment, the authorities are hopeful that at least for now the worst is over as far as Chennai is concerned.
Okay, that sounds good. But in terms of educational institutions and others where holidays have been declared, till when has that been done, and is that likely to be extended depending on the impact of this new weather system that is supposed to impact the area from the 9th to the 11th?
Well, that's right. Initially, both in Tamil Nadu and Puducherry, holidays have been declared for 2 days. But given the way the new weather system is likely to develop, it's almost certain that these holidays will be extended probably for at least another 2 or 3 days more, which means virtually the entire week, will be ruled out as far as the conduct of classes is concerned in both schools and colleges. So at the moment, the focus is on ensuring the safety of children. And people have been advised not to step out of their homes unnecessarily, except on work and the government departments have also been mostly closed down, except for the essential services. The one advantage this time has been that the government has been able to ensure that transport links are maintained. Both road and rail links are staying open. We are told that despite some delays, trains are running as usual. There have been some delays and some trains have been diverted, but most trains are continuing to ply as usual, including the suburban trains on the Chennai suburban network. Apart from that, the flight services have also been maintained, although there have been some delays due to the accumulation of water on the runways. But by and large, there's been no disruption of both road, rail, and air traffic. So that has been a major plus point as far as the authorities are concerned. The effort now is to ensure that things get back to normal as quickly as possible,
right,
and prepare for the next weather system that is around the corner.
Right. Let's hope that things stay on an even keel, and you say roads are okay, trains are okay, flights are okay, there are no casualties, so all that is positives to draw from, and let's hope that things improve from here on despite the new weather system developing. And thanks a lot for joining us, Philip. Stay safe. Well, addressing the annual webinar on Army organized by FICCI in association with the Indian Army, Chief of Army Staff General M.M. Naravane has said that the Indian Army is undergoing rapid modernization and is increasingly looking at indigenous solutions for its operational needs. He assured that the Indian Army will take lead in facilitating the vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat.
Indian Army is undergoing rapid modernization and is increasingly looking at indigenous solutions for its operational needs. I truly believe that during conflicts and war-like situations, only indigenously developed technologies will be available to us for full exploitation across diverse domains. Developing indigenous and local capabilities to confront emerging security challenges and reduce dependence on foreign technologies is therefore an imperative. The Army in particular is most suited to lead this initiative.
Okay, so a strong word there for indigenization of the armed forces, Atmanirbhar Bharat. Now, Union Minister for Education Dharmendra Pradhan today attended the convocation ceremony of Allahabad University as a chief guest in the Senate Hall campus. The Union Minister awarded degrees and medals to the students. University Chancellor Ashish Kumar Chauhan, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Bombay Stock Exchange were also present during the ceremony. At the convocation ceremony, medals and PhDs were awarded to meritorious students of batches 2018-19 and 2019-20. The ceremony was not held last year due to COVID-19 pandemic. Also during the ceremony, the Union Education Minister inaugurated 3 newly constructed buildings in the university. And during the ceremony, the Education Minister said that the national education policy has been implemented in the country. He hoped that the Allahabad University will adhere to the new policy in the coming days.
जिस भारत की शिक्षा व्यवस्था अपना पूंजी है, अनेक आक्रांताओं के हम शिकार हुए हैं, अनेक संघर्ष इस भूखंड में हुए हैं, लेकिन आखिर क्या वो हस्ती है जो हमारे साहित्यकार ने कहा है, भारत वो हस्ती है, वो मिटती नहीं है, शायद उसकी आत्मा ही भारत की शिक्षा है, भारत की संस्कार है। आज देश में नई राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति लागू हो गया है। इलाहाबाद यूनिवर्सिटी आने वाले दिनों में नई राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति आधारित अपने को बनाएगा, अपने विद्यार्थियों को उस प्रकार से प्रशिक्षित करेगा, अपने प्राध्यापक प्राध्यापिका को उस ढंग से ढालेगा, ये मेरा पूरा विश्वास है।
Moving on, the Supreme Court today continued hearing the PIL in the Lakhimpur Kheri incident. The top court said both the incidents of mowing down protesting farmers by a vehicle and the lynching of the accused have to be investigated and taken to a logical conclusion. The court recommended monitoring of the probe by a retired High Court judge and filing of separate charge sheets. Next hearing in the matter is on Friday. The top court was hearing the matter related to the 3rd of October incident in which 8 people, including 4 farmers, were killed in violence during a farmers' protest. In a boost to the BJP in Manipur, 2 Congress MLAs, Yamthong Hoikip and R.K. Imo, joined the party. Both were inducted into the party in the presence of Union Minister Sarbananda Sonowal and BJP leader Sambit Patra at the party headquarters in New Delhi. Sonowal and Patra welcomed them. The Union Minister said Prime Minister Narendra Modi has taken several measures for the development of the North-East. An update now on the nationwide COVID-19 vaccination drive. Well, the COVID-19 vaccination coverage has crossed the 108 crore landmark milestone. Over 108 crore 47 lakh vaccine doses have been administered across the country so far. More than 23.84 lakh vaccine doses have been administered during the last 24 hours. Now, with the identification of 10 more patients, the total number of people infected from Zika virus in Kanpur district of Uttar Pradesh has reached 89. The state government has established an integrated command center to stop the spread of the infection. A team of health officials has been deputed at the command center, which is working 24/7 and monitoring the situation. For testing and advising them to keep their surroundings clean, Kanpur District Magistrate Vishal has said that the team is also helping people by giving them detailed information about the virus, its spread and symptoms. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has greeted veteran BJP leader L.K. Advani on his birthday today. He prayed for L.K. Advani's long and healthy life. The PM said the nation remains indebted to him for his numerous efforts towards empowering people and enhancing cultural pride. The PM added that L.K. Advani is also widely respected for his scholarly pursuits and rich intellect. Later, the PM, along with Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu, Union Ministers Rajnath Singh and Amit Shah, as well as BJP President J.P. Nadda, met L.K. Advani at his residence in the national capital to wish him on his 94th birthday. L.K. Advani had served as the president of the Bharatiya Janata Party for the longest period since its inception in 1980, capping a parliamentary career of nearly 3 decades. He was the Deputy Prime Minister in the Atal Bihari Vajpayee government. L.K. Advani is widely regarded as an individual of great intellect, ability, strong principles and unwavering support for the idea of a strong and prosperous India. The 4-day Chhath Puja celebrations began this morning with the ritual of Nahai Khai. Devotees took a dip in the holy river early in the morning on Nahai Khai and later cooked a meal for themselves. The festival is dedicated to the sun god, which people believe sustains life on earth. Hindus believe that the early sunlight helps to cure many diseases and is a great source of healing too. Women keep fast for over 30 hours and pray for safety and well-being of their family. Time now in Midday Prime to get you all the business and economy updates. And for all the business and economy updates, we've got Tanvi with us.
Thank you, Gautam. Let's talk about the domestic stock markets first. In Business Prime, well, they've made good gains in afternoon deals on Monday. So the Sensex at the BSE had surged 502 points, 0.8% to 60,567 a short while ago. The Nifty at the National Stock Exchange had advanced 155 points, 0.9% to 18,072. In the broader market, the BSE Mid-Cap Index had climbed 1% and the Small Cap Index had added 0.6%. The top index gainers so far on the BSE are Ultratech Cement, Titan Company, Bajaj Finserv, HDFC and Kotak Mahindra with gains of between 2.9 and 4.3%. The top index losers so far are IndusInd Bank, Mahindra & Mahindra and SBI with losses of between 1.4 and 10%. But elsewhere in Asia, key share markets mostly fell on Monday while risky assets found support from the upbeat US October jobs report. They faced another test later in the week from a reading on the US inflation that could spook investors looking at key interest rates. The congressional passage of a long-delayed $1 trillion infrastructure bill in the US cheered investors, but a broader social safety net plan remains elusive. So MSCI's broadest index of Asia-Pacific shares outside Japan was down 0.2%. Japan's Nikkei gave up early gains to drop 0.4%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index was down 0.5%. And South Korea's Kospi had slipped 0.3% to a near one-month closing low driven by losses from biopharmaceutical firms. But China's Shanghai Composite Index had gained 0.2%. Moving on, as global COVID-19 cases surpassed 250 million on Monday, with some countries in Eastern Europe experiencing record outbreaks, the economy of Singapore is witnessing its worst recession since its independence. The country's economy shrank 5.8% in pandemic-stricken year of 2020. Based on advanced estimates by the Trade and Industry Ministry, the Singaporean economy shrank 3.8% in the final quarter, an improvement from the quarter before as COVID-19 restrictions were eased. The advanced estimates were slightly better than forecast of a 6 to 6.5% economic contraction for the year. The construction sector was the worst performer, recording its fourth straight quarter of contraction, shrinking nearly 34% for the full year. The services sector shrank 7.8%, even though the economy has started to reopen progressively since June this year and is now in phase 3. But with so much uncertainty in the rest of the world, such as new strains of the coronavirus and continued lockdowns, Singapore's economy is expected to expand by about 4 to 6% this year. Overseas, Tesla Inc. CEO Elon Musk should sell about 10% of his Tesla stock. That's what 57.9% of people have said who voted on his Twitter poll on Sunday when the electric car maker CEO asked users whether he should offload the stake. The world's richest person tweeted on Saturday that he would offload 10% of his stock if users approved the proposal in a poll. The poll garnered overall more than 3.5 million votes. Musk has said that he does not take cash salary or bonus from anywhere and only has stock. So the background to this move is that US Senate Democrats have unveiled a proposal to tax billionaire stocks and other tradable assets to help finance US President Joe Biden's social spending agenda and fill a loophole that has allowed them to defer capital gains taxes indefinitely. So as of June 30th, Musk's shareholding in Tesla came to about 170.5 million shares, and selling 10% would amount to close to $21 billion based on Friday's closing. The vote could see Musk dispose of nearly $21 billion of stock in the electric car maker, as he has promised to abide by the result in response to a billionaire's tax proposed by US Democrats. Back home, 197 Communications-owned Paytm opened its initial public offering IPO for subscription on Monday. The 18,300 crore IPO is the largest public issue in the history of Indian capital markets. Paytm is selling shares in the price band of 2,080 to 2,150 rupees per share, and retail investors can bid for a minimum of one lot of 6 shares. The issue has been subscribed 10% so far on Monday, the first day of bidding, receiving bids for 46.23 lakh equity shares against the offer size of 4.83 crore shares. The portion set aside for retail investors had been subscribed 52%. The portion reserved for non-institutional investors had been subscribed 1%, while qualified institutional buyers have put in bids for 2,310 shares against 2.63 crore shares set aside for them. So that's it from the world of business. Back to you, Gautam.
Yes, early days on that IPO offering from Paytm 197 Communications yet, so we'll have to wait and see what happens on day 2 and 3, Tanvi. Thanks a lot for joining us for the moment. Okay, now let's get you all the updates from across the globe as well. Well, in all the updates that we've gathered for you from across the globe, there's some good news to start with. Fully vaccinated Indians would be able to travel to the US starting today. They will, however, have to show proof of a negative coronavirus test before boarding a flight to the country. According to the guidelines provided by the White House, unvaccinated minors will need to be tested at the same time as the adults with whom they are traveling, 3 days with vaccinated adults and 1 day with unvaccinated adults. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention has determined that for purposes of travel to the US, vaccines accepted will include FDA approved or authorized and World Health Organization emergency use listed vaccines. With this, the US has ended historic restrictions that had barred much of the world from entering the US for as long as 21 months. And in Japan, the government eased border controls beginning today for fully vaccinated travelers, excluding tourists, responding to requests from the business community following a rapid decline in infections. Everyone entering Japan must be fully inoculated with COVID-19 vaccines that are recognized by the Japanese authorities. Those eligible include travelers on short-term business visits of less than 3 months, as well as longer-term visitors, including foreign students and workers on so-called technical internship programs with a 14-day quarantine requirement. Schools and companies sponsoring them are required to submit documents detailing their activities and how they will be monitored. The 10-day self-isolation for Japanese citizens and foreign nationals with re-entry permits will be shortened to 3 days. Australia's largest city of Sydney will further ease social distancing curve from today, a month after emerging from a coronavirus lockdown that lasted nearly 100 days. Australia crossed the 80% mark of full inoculations on Saturday. It has also eased international border curves for the first time during the pandemic, but only for its vaccinated people from states with high levels of inoculation. However, domestic travel is still hindered as most states and territories keep internal borders shut. Western Australian state will reopen when it hits the 90% level of double vaccine doses. Despite the Delta outbreaks that brought lockdowns for months in the 2 largest cities of Sydney and Melbourne, Australia's tally of COVID-19 infections is far lower than many developed nations at just over 180,000 cases and 1,597 deaths. And let's tell you what we are learning from the UK as well, where people will soon be able to book their coronavirus vaccine 5 months on from their second jab, which is a month earlier than before. Boosters will still be administered 6 months after the second dose. However, it's hoped that earlier booking will help speed up the rollout. As of now, more than 10 million people have receive their COVID-19 booster or third jab, ensuring vital protection over the winter months. COVID-19 booster vaccines have been delivered or booked in at every older adult care home in England where it's safe to do so, with almost 9 in 10 care homes already visited. And it's time now to get you all the sporting updates as well. And to get the sporting updates underway, we've got Deepika with us.
Good afternoon, Gautam. Let's quickly take a look at all what is happening in the world of sports, and starting with cricket first. The ICC T20 Cricket World Cup has finally found its 4 semi-finalists in Pakistan, New Zealand, England and Australia out of 12 teams in the main draw in the United Arab Emirates. The 4 semi-finals will see England taking on New Zealand in Abu Dhabi on 10th of November, while Pakistan will take on Australia in the second semi-final in Dubai on 11th of November. Pakistan on Sunday became the only team in the tournament to win all 5 of their games in the Super 12, while England topped Group 1 with 4 wins out of 5 games. And India and Namibia are set to cross swords in match number 42 of the ongoing T20 Cricket World Cup on Monday, 8th of November at Dubai International Cricket Stadium. The men in blue, led by Virat Kohli, have already been knocked out of the competition and they will be playing for pride today. India's chances officially ended after New Zealand defeated Afghanistan by 8 wickets in Abu Dhabi. Namibia, on the other hand, did well in the qualifiers, after which they beat Scotland. However, they are out of the competition after losses at the hands of New Zealand, Pakistan and Afghanistan. The T20 World Cup Super 12 stage has been a good platform for Namibia to show just how good they are as an international side, but matches against India offered them treat like no other contest. And moving on to international football now, the Reds' 25-match run without a loss was ended at the London Stadium as Jurgen Klopp's side had the look of a team that needs the international break. West Ham punished 3 costly mistakes from Liverpool goalkeeper Alisson Becker as the Reds' 25-match unbeaten run was shattered. Jurgen Klopp's side would have broken the club's record unbeaten run in all competitions, which had stood since the year 1982 if they avoided defeat in East London. But instead, Alisson's disastrous display condemned Liverpool to a first loss since Real Madrid beat them in the Champions League quarter-final first leg in the month of April. Liverpool had not lost in the league since Fulham won at Anfield in March. Trent Alexander-Arnold equalized with a brilliant free kick, but Alisson was at fault again as Pablo Fornals and Kurt Zouma struck for the Hammers after half-time. De Vogue got 1 back for Liverpool, but it wasn't enough to preserve their long unbeaten streak, and Liverpool dropped to 4th place in the Premier League as West Ham climbed above them into the 3rd place. The Reds are 4 points behind leaders Chelsea, while West Ham are only 3 adrift of Thomas Tuchel's men. That's all from the world of sports for now, Gautam.
Thank you, Deepika, and that will also bring to a close this edition of Midday Prime, because that's all we have for the moment for you. We're out of time as well, but stay tuned for all the updates, including that major inauguration and unveiling, in fact laying the foundation stone of major projects for Palghar, which is a huge pilgrimage site which will have a lot of benefits for the people of Maharashtra and the country. Stay tuned.